Thank you. I wanted to start off, I wanted to ask you, like, how long have you been dancing, and how did you get into it?
It's been about 6 years since I've formally had my dance studio, and I started actually teaching dance informally close to now about maybe 12 years. And I started because I wanted to teach my son give him some idea of our Indian culture. The kids who are born in this country really have no understanding of our culture because they live in a different culture. While I was being brought up in India, it just seeps into you. It's like you're breathing air, the culture comes into you. But in this country, it doesn't come so naturally. They spend 3/4 of their day outside the house, and while they're in school and stuff like that. So just to give them an idea of what our culture was, we actually started an Indian school where we started to teach the kids Hindi as a language, to speak and write and read, spoke about religion. And my part in that school was to teach the history of India, get them the cultural aspect. And it was during one of those teachings when we spoke about the festival of Holi, and they asked, like, how do we celebrate it? And I mentioned about how we dance at every festival. And so they were also excited and they wanted to learn something. And that, from there, trying to teach my son and his friends. I remember we started at school with just 6 children, but within like a couple of weeks we went to an amount we couldn't even deal with. And from there it just went there, started to teach them, one dance per semester or season, and eventually went into a dance school.
Beautiful, awesome. Is it like important to have a classical background for a person to, with competitions or dance like shows and stuff like that? Like, is it important for one to be like classical trained, or if they're classical trained, then how much will it help for them to perform on the stage?
To be a part of a competition, you don't need to have a background in dance per se. Your main interest should be dance, and if you can adapt or adjust to a dance style and be able to perform it, it's great, because dance is something that is either inborn, it's a natural talent, or it's a learnt talent. So either way you have it and you can portray it. But of course, any education that comes formally with the training that has a solid background, you will stand out and be able to perform wonderfully. But no, you don't have to have a classical background to be able to perform in a competition, because competition levels have different criteria, where you could be a Bollywood dancer, you could be a folk style dancer, and a lot of folk styles I know are, you're taught as you're growing up, depending on the region you're growing in. And Bollywood comes naturally to a lot of people. As far as I'm concerned, I really don't have any background in dance. Mine just came to me. I would watch TV and I would be like, oh, I like that, and I would just kind of imitate the steps, and it just went from there. And Bollywood is really a blend of the classical, the folk, and the Western styles. Just kind of seeing things, just took it naturally. It just came with, of course, once I started, decided to start my dance school, I would, no matter what, do riyaz for a couple of hours every day, train myself, talk to friends who had some background in classical, do a lot of research on Kathak and Bharatanatyam and all the different dance styles in India, whether they were folk or whether they were classical, and learn, where they came from, how they came and became a part of our culture. And once I got the entire background on what our Indian style dancing is, I began to recognize what it required to become a better dancer, and that led from one thing to the other thing. And today when I teach it, I don't just teach dance as just come to the studio and I teach you a few steps and you dance to a piece of music and you're out. My students have to know that this dance comes from, whether it's Punjab or it's a Rajasthan folk style, or even the Bollywood song. It's a blend of a lot of different musics from India. And I always tell them, this beat's from, the dholak beat is from Punjab, or the South Indian rhythmic beat that you hear is, a piece of A.R. Rahman's. So they need to understand where it's coming from.
Great. What's the name of your dance school?
We've called it Nritya Jankar,
Nice.
which means Nritya to dance and Jankar to the beat or to the rhythm.
Beautiful. Ask you, like, if someone comes like who doesn't, bad students, like who just can't dance, how do you deal with that? How do you make them learn dance, like when they are really got like two left legs?
There are no bad students. I have never considered anybody to be good or bad. It's the fact that they've come to you to want to learn dance. The initiative came from them. And once you feel the initiative that I want to learn dance, you automatically learn dance. And it becomes something that you learn faster because nobody's pushing you. You came and said, I want to learn dance. And that's when, and my first thing to all my students, whether they are adults or children, is leave all your inhibitions outside my door when you come in here. So when I correct you, you should not be like, what is she asking me to do, or why is she telling me I'm not doing this correctly? Because you don't see it, I see the mistake because I'm teaching you something. And once they do that, no question of an ego involved or the vanity involved in learning something, the students become such natural dancers. It's like they've had that inborn talent in them. You just needed somebody to kind of give it a push.
Wow. What is the secret of your liveliness? Like, I've always seen you, like, you're so happy and jovial, and at the same time, like, you're so good in your work. So how do you manage to be the way you are?
Dance. I think dance keeps me that way. Dance, I feel, with the combination of the music that we put on, it just draws my focus away from everything. And I'm so focused on what I'm doing with the music and with the dance, whether I'm choreographing or teaching. And just watching the pleasure on my students' faces when they pick up something and the fact that they're enjoying it, it just brings that emotional joy, that mental challenge that I feel is satisfied, the physical activity that allows the adrenal to, pump in my body. It just is such a, it's like a happy hormone in my body. It just makes me feel good about everything. And I think dance has made me such much better person than I used to be. And the fact that it keeps me in touch, constant touch with people. From the youngest child to the oldest. I start my kids at 3 years.
Wow.
I start teaching them from 3, and my oldest student is 82. So
wonderful.
From that wide range that I go from, it's amazing. I feel like every person that walks into my life, whether they come to learn dance or otherwise, they teach me a lot before they walk away.
What efforts does one dancer have to do to make sure that like a dance is graceful and also like they give out the right expressions?
A dance has to be graceful. Dance is a physical activity. It's an art form that you can actually see, and you portray your emotions through dance, and those emotions can be on your face, can be in the different hand gestures that you make, the mudras. It's in your foot movement. It's in every aspect, starting from your feet up to the tip of your head. It's to the tip of your fingers. It's every expression that you make. Once you understand what the dance is, once you understand the words in that music piece, you express it, you emote it, and it's only when you emote it do you really make the dance look good. And it automatically looks graceful because you're in it, you feel it.
Wow. Let's say that in a performance, a contestant or a participant misses out, like there's some mistake and he or she misses out on a beat. So what can they do to make sure that they correct that and then the rest of the performance doesn't go off beat? Like mistakes do happen. So how can they correct that?
Well, the judges have to point out about the beat because dance is staying on rhythm. It is about beats and rhythms and tals. If you're not on it, then you don't understand anything about music or dance. And if you do miss a beat while you're dancing, you're a human being. Mistakes happen. Plus, you're under pressure to perform. It's a competition. So, anything can happen at that minute. Your foot gets caught in your costume, or you're taking a twirl and you lose your balance. Things like those happen.